Hello YouTube, Bane666 here. So I had the misfortune of coming across this wonderful series of articles on a website called Witty Bitches. Yeah. And the series of articles is called MRA Lingo, a men's rights activist lingo glossary. Yeah, this one's going to be interesting. So I guess the question is, how many of these terms are actually men's rights activist terms? Well, let's find out. So let's go through the introduction first.
Men's rights activists. You can't live with them, and you can't ship them all off on Mars when for breeding purposes. If you're a woman on the internet, who identifies as such, you've probably encountered this memorable breed of douchebag. MRAs are like lice or rats. They're everywhere.
So MRAs are like lice or rats. They're everywhere. Yeah, maybe in your house, but not in mine.
Easily recognizable in their fine Halloween costume fedoras.
Oh, of course, the mandatory fedora reference, even though MRAs don't wear fedoras. Well done. Well done, just more stereotypes. That's all they've got. Bullshit and stereotypes.
You may first become aware of the presence of an MRA via their distinctive mating call. Well, actually, I do think I say well, actually, a fair bit. So, I think the author actually, is right about this one, at least with me. And or vocabulary that is patently false.
Well, I guess if we're talking to feminists about their core beliefs, yeah, then I guess we would be saying that is patently false. So I guess so far she has a couple of things right.
Where might you encounter one of these lovely creatures? Men's rights activists are typically found wherever anonymous assholes go to congregate online. Mostly Reddit.
Yeah. I don't think that most MRAs are on Reddit. I mean, I don't know. I don't use Reddit. I guess I'm a YouTube MRA, as you no doubtedly know because you're watching this. But is there a bigger population on Reddit than YouTube and other places? I honestly don't know. I think, though, it's easier for a person like this author to find some random comment on Reddit and just to attribute it to all MRAs everywhere, as opposed to actually listening to an actual MRA, or more importantly, someone who is a well-known, influential member of the men's rights movement.
I mean, anyone can make a video misrepresenting the prominent figures of a movement while equivocating a small, loud minority of the group to the whole and backing up your assertions with cherry-picked data and stuff off social media sites.
So the clip you just watched is from YouTube feminist Michael Roland, who makes the claim that MRAs just cherry-pick social media and use that to demonize all the poor innocent feminists. Mind you, he obviously has never watched one of my videos where I go after mainstream media. But it's interesting that he says this, because often in that very mainstream media that I go after, the examples of bad, evil MRAs they use is from social media. Often it will be something from Twitter or Facebook or even Reddit. And often, more often than not, what they claim to be an MRA is not actually an MRA at all. And Reddit is the perfect example of this. They will often say that the Red Pill Reddit is an MRA Reddit, which it's not. But of course, Michael Roland makes this same mistake himself, as his whole argument is based on the fact that Sargon apparently is an MRA.
Like all his mindless anti-feminist MRA followers, Sargon cares not for change. He doesn't give a fuck about making a difference or trying to fix any of the issues that affect both women and men in the world today. He just wants to maintain the status quo and make a quick buck while doing it. MRAs are all too quick to say how their movement is about helping men and addressing the issues that they face, but their actions prove otherwise. Their actions show that all they care about is abusing feminists, lying and twisting facts to support their totally misguided, pre-established conclusions, and to maintain the status quo.
So he starts out with the assumption that Sargon is a men's rights activist. And then he uses Sargon as an example of how men's rights activists don't actually do activism for the rights of men, but just bash feminists. Yeah. I honestly don't know if Michael is a complete fucking moron or whether he's just a dishonest asshole. But the fact that Sargon doesn't do activism for the rights of men would suggest that maybe, just maybe, he's not a fucking men's rights activist. Did that ever occur to you? You fucking moron, Michael. Seriously. If you're going to use an example of an MRA, why not actually pick someone who is an MRA? But, you know, this is typical feminism, isn't it? This is Feminism 101. You just randomly pick anything that suits your cause and claim that that's a men's rights activist, and then often criticize that random person or group who has nothing to do with the men's rights movement that you randomly picked. You then accuse them of not actually advocating for the rights of men. Wow, just fucking amazing, isn't it? Anyway, back to the witty bitches.
Like most subcultures, MRAs have their own lingo and abbreviations. In fact, MRA Lingo rivals both parenting sites and Justin Bieber fan clubs in both size and scope. Because of this, understanding the average MRA, MGTOW may be daunting, especially if you aren't familiar with their culture.
So she's put MRAs and MGTOWs in together. Now I know there is a crossover, but they are not synonymous. But we can tell straight away that what she's going to do here is just throw everyone from the Manosphere and anyone who's a troll or whatever all in together and just call them MRAs. That's pretty obvious from the start.
This is why we decided to put together a primer for all our SJW, social justice warrior readers, or anyone else foolhardy enough to take on these Machiavellian ne'er-do-well. This is part 1, but if you think I've missed one, feel free to let us know in the comments.
Okay, so let's go on to the first term. And the first one on the list is sexual marketplace.
Noun, place where men and women interact, or invisible battlefield on which intrasexual competition is constantly waged. Dude bros see life as nothing more than a game. The object of this game is always, bang some broads. The sexual marketplace, or SMP, is where they meet said broads, or what regular people call the world.
Well, I don't think I've ever used the term sexual marketplace. I know I've used the term sexual marketplace value, which we'll go on to in a minute. But the sexual marketplace is what, where people meet someone of the opposite sex or the same sex, if you're that way inclined. But you'll see here the use of the word game followed by bang some broads, which is clearly a reference to the pickup artists. I'm guessing we're going to see this quite a bit in this series of articles. But let's continue.
For most of us, the world is merely the place we all live and breathe, but for bros it's a hellscape of constant strife where men battle bravely for the right to be crowned King Vaginite, ruler of all vaginas.
King Vaginite, ruler of all vaginas. Yeah, because that's something we talk about in the men's rights movement all the fucking time, isn't it? Yeah, clearly she's not talking about pickup artists here. Not at all. Not at all. Let's move on to the next one. Sexual marketplace value. Now, my interpretation of this before we go on to her definition is very basically how attractive someone is to the opposite sex. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean physical attraction. It could be the way you dress, your confidence, maybe your wealth. Things like having bad breath would make your sexual marketplace value go down, for example. It's a complex mix of different things that gives you a value when it comes to dating or mating. And of course, this is the type of thing we see all the time in women's magazines. If we look right throughout history, we also see it's a fundamental of the human race. But let's go on to see what she actually thinks it means.
Noun, value of one's looks on the SMP.
So it's only the value of someone's looks. Alright, so if a woman walks into a restaurant and she's meeting someone on a blind date, and there's a fit, healthy man who's in an expensive suit sitting by himself on one table, and on the other table there is a overweight, balding guy in a t-shirt and a pair of shorts and a pair of thongs, which I think the Americans call flip-flops. She's not going to have a preference, apparently. She's not going to think that one of them is more dateable, or she'd prefer to mate with than the other. Apparently, she's just going to judge them equally, right? She's not going to have a preference. Yeah. And then there's reality, right? Everyone has a list of criteria that they look for in a partner, and that list is basically someone's sexual marketplace value. Now, this might change from person to person. But there are some fundamentals. There are some things that most people will find attractive and most people will find unattractive. For example, I don't think there's that many women out there who are attracted to men with bad breath. Most women would prefer men with a full head of hair than someone who's balding. Men typically like women who are more feminine than women who are more masculine. The list goes on. You get the idea. But let's continue and see what this feminist has to claim that it is.
According to MRA lore, every person has a sexual market value, or SMV, aka how valuable their looks are to a potential partner. MRAs say that women start high, young, pretty, firm jigglies in the sweater area, and plummet as she ages. A man's SMV, however, goes up, up, up. Careers plus money plus no baby ravaged body equals Putang City. Am I right?
Okay, so there's an evolutionary reason why typically women find older, more established, successful men attractive, and men find younger women attractive, and it all has to do with reproduction. Okay, so if you're a man who wants to reproduce, to have kids, then typically a younger woman is your better choice from a biological point of view. Now, that's not to say that that's the only thing men look for in a relationship. That's not to say that all men are looking to become fathers, but from a biological reproductive point of view, that is a factor. And it's the same with women looking for more established, more successful men. Once again, if you're going to start a family, if you're going to reproduce, it's better to do it with a man who is successful and established than someone who is unemployed and sits at home and plays video games all day. Yeah, and this is this all ties into the type of shaming language that MRAs constantly get from feminists. They constantly refer to us as living in our mother's basements, which is a way of saying you are an unsuccessful man. It's a way of trying to pull down our sexual marketplace value. So, these things are universal influences, and these are things that feminists say and do all the time. They do judge men based on their sexual marketplace value constantly, and they use shaming language in an attempt to attack men through pulling down their value on the sexual marketplace. But let's continue and see what else she has to say.
MRA world is a magical version of 1902 where women can't even vote, let alone, gasp, make their own money, and men never, ever age or battle the middle age spread.
Yeah, well, this is a total fucking straw man. Or maybe a better way of putting it is an outright fucking lie. To suggest that men's rights activists don't want women to have a vote or earn their own money, absolute fucking crazy. Alright, we're against traditional roles where men are enslaved into becoming the provider protector. That's not equality, okay? So, any idea that that's what men want, or men's rights activists want, is fucking crazy. And why would we want to take away the vote from women? Alright, so let's go on to the next term, which is alpha male. Here we go. And this is typical pickup artist bullshit. This is something which we hear from pickup artists all the time. It's not really a men's rights term, is it? But let's hear what she has to say. The definition is:
noun, male with the most SMV, top dog. What is an alpha male? Why, MRAs, of course.
Oh yeah, of course, because that's all we talk about is alpha males. You fucking idiots. Let's continue.
Alpha males in bro speak are just like alpha males in wolf packs, the top dog. One site labels them as the man other men aspire to be, and the man women want to be with.
Now she actually has a link to the site where this quote apparently comes from. If I was to guess, I would say it's from a pickup artist site, probably Return of Kings or somewhere like that. So let me click on the link and see what I get. Okay, that actually takes me to a MGTOW site, which has a glossary of terms. And yes, there's alpha male there. And it does actually say the leader of the pack, the cock of the walk, the man other men aspire to be, and women want to be with. So, not actually an MRA site, but I actually would have thought it was a PUA site, but it's actually from a MGTOW site. Still, I think it's pretty clear that MRAs don't go around bragging about how manly we are and how many women we've slept with. That's not what we're about. We're actually concerned about men committing suicide and the homeless, the sentencing gap, fathers' rights, and, actual issues like that, as opposed to getting pussy. But she continues.
Of course, if this were true, they wouldn't spend so much time obsessing over beta males and the dumb skanks ladies who bone them.
So once again, clearly talking about pickup artists. Let's see what the next one is. Number 4, AW/WW. I have no idea of what that is. Absolutely none. I don't think I've ever heard those terms before. It's let's find out what they are.
Noun, American or Western women. A term used to differentiate obstinate sluts, usually from the US or other Western countries, from more docile, MRA-friendly women, usually from the East, that only exist in porn or the desperate wet dreams of men's rights activists.
So here again, once again, we are talking about fucking pickup artists. You fucking moron. Fuck. Just unbelievable. I mean, and this stereotype that we somehow like docile women. Have you seen Karen Strawn? Alison Teeman? Actually, any of the honey badgers. Take any of the female honey badgers. Are any of them docile? Fucking hell. Just unbelievable. Just stereotypes and utter fucking bullshit. Let's move on to the next one. Baby rabies. Is that when a baby gets bitten by a rabbit dog or something? I can kind of guess where this is going, but so let's read a definition.
Adjective. The female biological clock.
Okay, the female biological clock. Alright, I've never heard the term baby rabies before. I imagine it has been used. I don't recall hearing it. But let's have a look at her claim.
According to MRAs, baby rabies makes women desperate to get preggers. no matter what. A woman with baby rabies, usually an old crone of 35 plus, will stop at nothing to get at your sweet, sweet baby gravy, usually without your permission. Then she can trap you with her adorable, baby-shaped shackles of financial servitude. Only women can get baby rabies, of course.
Okay, so let's actually have a look at this claim. Are there some women out there who fit this description? Yep, let's roll the clip.
About stealing your partner's sperm so that you could get pregnant. Last week, journalist Liz Jones caused a bit of a stir when she admitted that she had stolen sperm from 2 boyfriends in an attempt to have a baby.
Well, Liz Fraser says that no matter how desperate a woman may be to get pregnant, dirty tricks like this are simply not acceptable.
Well, both Liz Fraser and Liz Jones join us now. So, Liz Jones, let's start with you first of all. You're an outspoken columnist. Anyone who reads your column will know the sort of thing they're going to get. It's not the first time you've ruffled a few feathers, but you have said yourself that you are not and wouldn't be a natural mother.
Yes, I suppose to fill people in a little bit, I was in my late 30s before I had a proper relationship. I guess like many women who'd had a career, I was a bit desperate. I also, slightly at the back of my mind, felt that if I had a child, my partner was more likely to stick around. I think that's a mistake that many women make. I'm not condoning that women try to get pregnant without telling their husband. I'm just saying that it happens.
But you say yourself you didn't consider yourself to be a mumsy type. In fact, you looked down on mumsy types.
Yes. But it just shows, if even I did it, who wasn't really that desperate to be a mum. I thought it might be just something to do. I might get a year off maternity leave. I might get the man to hang around.
So, sorry, you're being a mum to get maternity leave and to get a man to hang around?
Women have lots of different reasons for having babies. Some of them may be vanity, some of them may be they feel they might be missing their chance. It gives them something to love.
Wow.
So luckily, it didn't work with me, but I felt it was something that had to be talked about.
Yes.
Because I don't think men are quite as aware.
Well, we'll
women
discover that as we sort of plough our way through the story, because you say that the partner that you had at the time, but we've heard your reasons for thinking about starting a family, he was wildly unsuitable, you say. So not only was your reasons for having a baby interesting, to say the least, but you were picking a man who wasn't even suitable.
But I think when a woman gets to the end of her reproductive lifespan, which I was, and when I got married I was in my 40s, you do get desperate. And it's who you happen to be with. So even though I was with a husband who was a lot younger, wasn't ready to be a dad, I thought, right, well, he may be a baby himself. This is my last chance.
He said he didn't trust you.
Yeah, it's your last chance.
So he said, and then he insisted on condoms, because he said, I think in the back of his mind, looking at what you said, he reckoned that you were going to trick him.
Yeah, so I'm not saying it's a good idea at all. It's really lucky that it didn't work with me. But I'm saying that women will get desperate, and the older you get, the more desperate you get, the more unlikely the man might be to be ready. He may not be ready. He may be ready in 2 years' time.
If you had fallen pregnant, would you have told him the truth? Would you have said, "Oh, well, that was an accident. How did that happen?"
No, I don't think I would. And I would have just said, I didn't do it deliberately. Oh dear, what should we do about it?
You'd have lied. You'd have lied.
Well, lots of women I spoke to for this feature, they said, well, of course I didn't tell him. Of course
Thieves and liars.
You think
women think they know better than men.
See, this worries me slightly, and Liz, I think you'll agree with me slightly here. I mean, this is not very girl power, this, is it? I mean, this is sort of giving us a very bad name, and I worry about that.
I think the biggest thing that's going to come out of this piece is that any men reading it or watching this morning are going to be terrified to sleep with the women that they're sleeping with.
I think we should explain, before we go any further, how you actually did this. Because he insisted, and very sensibly insisted, on using a condom. Then you took that used condom when he didn't realise, and strange thing to lose sight of. But you then took that and used its contents in your bathroom to inseminate yourself. So let's carry on, having known the method.
What I wanted to say is, I mean, we're talking about complete manipulation of a person's life. You said the word trust earlier on, Phil, as well. You know, relationships are about trust. And now many women listening will know, of course, one does not always trust the man that one's with. Okay, human relationships are very complicated and we need to be careful because we are the ones who are going to have the baby, okay? So there are many women who know that they're with a man who's going to be very careful. Of course, he's going to be careful. 30 seconds later, you're knocked up, and that's a big problem for you. But we as women, we hold the trump card, actually, when it comes to having children. If a woman would like to lie to her partner, she can become pregnant without telling him. That is completely hijacking his life. You don't get a year off and maternity leave. You get 50 years of parenting.
So, yeah, I don't think baby rabies is an MRA term. Not one that I've heard of anyway. But there are definitely women who fit that description. And it's amazing, isn't it, that it's very, very common to hear women criticising men in general or specific types of men. This is very, very common. Yet, if men criticise a specific type of women, those who are desperate to get pregnant because their biological clock's running out, and they might actually trick a man into becoming a father when he doesn't want to, if we dare to criticise that specific type of women, then apparently we're misogynistic monsters. Yet apparently that's not a double standard. For women to criticise men in general or specific types of men, that's perfectly fine. But for men to criticise a specific type of woman, they're misogynistic monsters. And apparently there's no double standard. Absolutely fucking amazing. So let's go on to the next one. Number 6, beta male. Yes, of course. How did I know that this one was going to be in the list?
Adjective. Chumps, non-MRAs.
Oh, so a beta male is a non-MRA. Really? Is that what a beta male is?
Any dude who doesn't subscribe to the MRA state of mind is automatically a beta male. One site referred to them as the Feminized Mangina. See also, White Knight.
Now she says one site, but she doesn't actually name the site, and we can't actually see the quoting context. So I did a bit of a search on the internet to find Feminized Mangina, and I came across the MGTOW site again. And it seems many of the terms which she's using in her list she has gotten from this MGTOW glossary. So we see sexual marketplace value, we see the sexual marketplace, we see alpha male, it has the AW or WW term, it has baby rabies, and of course it has beta male. There's a note under beta male, which is MGTOW do not subscribe to such silly and finite classifications as beta or alpha because these terms are essentially defined by the female. These definitions exist here only to illustrate what other people mean when they sling these bullshit terms around like a frisbee. So it's pretty clear that she's got her list at least partly, if not almost entirely, from this glossary. So she would have seen this note which clearly separates the MGTOW from the term beta male. And another interesting thing about this list is it also has MRA on it.
MRA. Men's rights activist. Different from a MGTOW, an MRA actively strives to reverse the grossly unfair anti-male bias in the divorce and anti-family court system, where a woman can legally drop all of her parental responsibilities off and her unwanted baby at the local fire station with no consequences and no questions asked. That is Roe versus Wade. There are men in prison, right now, who have been ordered to pay child support for children that are not theirs. MRAs seek to restore an equilibrium in the tragically skewed Western legal system where women have, and want, 100% choice, but fail to accept, and don't want, 100% responsibility. MGTOW practice prevention, that is never sign a marriage contract and the problem is solved.
Now that's a reasonable definition of MRA, I guess, although there's a lot of other issues I would have liked to have been summed up in that. But the clear thing we can take away from this is that there is a clear distinction between the men's rights movement, men's rights activists, and the MGTOW movement. Even though there is crossover, they are still two different, distinct things. Now, if I'm correct and she got part of her list or the majority of her list from this glossary, then she would have read this definition. But clearly she has ignored it because, you know, it's much more convenient just to lump everyone in together, isn't it? Well, there's still plenty of definitions to get through, and I'm going to leave that until next time. So until then, always remember,
don't drink the poison Kool-Aid.
And while on the topic of definitions, let me play you a clip from a recent Kevin Logan video.
Because actually the Manosphere is fucking chock full of misandrists. Of course, there's the widespread, almost fucking universal use of terms like beta, omega, cuck, mangina, and all the rest of it, which are basically ways of trying to undermine men who've chosen to live in ways that you fucking haven't, and basically telling huge swathes of the male population that they're utter pieces of fucking shit, which, I put it to you, is a bit fucking misandrist. But even worse than that, there's the concept of the white knight, or pussy chaser, which for those who don't know is the concept that a man would only ever stick up for a woman or fight for women's rights or, you know, be a feminist in order to get laid. Now, of course, at the beginning of this segment, I joked about white knighting for jacked up, okay? But I was using that term ironically. Loads of people in the Manosphere don't use it ironically, though. They are literally saying that men are incapable of doing anything other than for getting laid, which, if you boil that concept down, basically means that they are saying men are fucking base animals, unable to think with anything but their cocks, unable to do anything but for sexual instinct. No better than the fucking monkey in the zoo mindlessly jerking himself off. Which I would put to you is a fucking phenomenally, disgustingly misandrist concept. But yeah, you keep telling yourself it's the feminists that hate men.
Now, I would actually have to agree with Kev that claiming that a male feminist is just a male feminist to get laid is a really piss-poor argument. It's a really bad argument, and like Kev correctly says, it's bad because it reduces all male autonomy down to thinking with your dick, right? And that's a really, really fucking bad message to spread. This is a point I've made before, that the you're just a male feminist because you want to get laid argument is fucking bullshit. It's a lot more complex than that. Sure, with some individuals, getting laid may be one factor, but you can't dismiss everyone who is a male feminist because of that. But what Kevin Logan fails to realise is that this is one of the most common arguments used against MRAs by feminists, as we've seen in this Witty Bitches article. They basically reduce every motivation of a men's rights activist down to his penis and getting laid. In their minds, it's all about pussy. They're obsessed with their vaginas. They're obsessed with thinking that we're obsessed with their vaginas. And they seriously can't imagine any motivation by a man or a men's rights activist that doesn't revolve around their vaginas and getting laid. Now, part of this may be legitimate confusion with the pickup artists. Some people honestly don't know the difference, but there are plenty of people who do know the difference. And the author of this Witty Bitches article is one of them. She has got all her definitions from one MGTOW site, and if you actually go through the definitions as she obviously has, it's fucking clear that MGTOWs, MRAs and PUAs are different groups. She has conveniently ignored this, though, so she can make a cheap attack at us by trying to sexually shame us, to pull down our sexual marketplace value, to try to belittle us, as opposed to actually dealing with legitimate men's rights concerns, with legitimate men's rights issues. So Kevin is correct. People on our side who make the "you're only a male feminist to get laid" argument should be criticised, because it is a weak bullshit argument. But he really needs to take a good hard look at his own side, because we have this shit in the mainstream media all the fucking time aimed at us. Okay, Kev, so cut out the double standards, mate. If it's wrong for us, then it is also fucking wrong for your side. That simple. As for my definition, the MGTOW definition and the Witty Bitches definition of such words as white knight and mangina, we will get to them in later episodes.